Welcome to Happy Healthy Living with Yvonne Douglas. I'm Doug, and this is
I'm Ivan.
Yvonne is here today, yay! And he has an awesome recipe to share with you guys. You actually made it. It was last week.
Last Saturday
for our dinners for 10 group, for our church group, and everybody loved it, and it was so good. And plus, it's healthy too. Can you tell us a little bit about it? What's the name of it?
So it's a Tuscan meatball, and the last one that I made it gluten-free and dairy-free because we have a friend that is gluten intolerant and can do dairy, so I had to get really creative, and it actually turned out really well.
It was so good.
So today we're not going to make it dairy-free, but I'm going to stick with gluten-free.
It's a little healthy for happy, healthy living.
So it's got cannellini beans, it's got the ground beef, which is going to be high protein. I just have a workout, so I need a really good amount of protein. But it also is very flavorful, really colorful, and so I think it's going to be a great recipe to share with you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
Awesome, so stay tuned.
We're going to be using for the Tuscan meatball, we have 3 pounds of grape tomatoes, we have 1 russet potato, and we have about 1.5 ounces of diced celery. We have half an onion finely diced, and we have about 10 diced garlic cloves. I also use 1 shallot because it's going to give it a sweeter flavor to the sauce once it caramelizes. We have 1 cup of extra virgin olive oil, and we actually use also, these are blanched lemons that are blanched with water and vinegar. And so what I use, I do it once a week, and so you can, we're gonna dice them finely, and we're gonna add it to the sauce, and it gives it that nice acidity to the sweetness of the grape tomatoes. For our spices, we're gonna be using oregano. I use cumin, and we also use sweet paprika, and we're going to be using about 2 cups of water, and for taste we're going to be using, I use sea salt. And for our batch of the meatballs, we're going to be using, we have here about 2 pounds of ground beef. I like to use this 93% lean, and for the mixture for this batch, we're also going to be using a combination of basil and baby arugula. We have feta cheese. Here we have about 5 ounces of feta. And here we have finely shredded Gruyere cheese, and I have about 2 ounces. We're going to have 3 large eggs, and also I have some clean mushrooms that we're actually going to, once we make the mix of the cheese with the panko and the egg, we're actually going to stuff these mushrooms inside, and then the meatball is going to cover the mushroom. And so then we're going to fry them, and then we're going to put them in the sauce once the sauce is ready. And here's our gluten-free panko that we're going to be using for today. We don't have to use gluten-free, but we like, to stay gluten-free, so we're using this panko. And lastly, we're gonna finish up with some cannellini beans, and yes, we're also going to sprinkle it with some pine nuts that are gonna give it a really nice flavor to the sauce and the meatballs. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is to cook the potatoes. And so in a large pot, we're going to fry the potatoes. So on a medium heat, we're going to add our oil. So we do a little bit of oil, and then we're gonna let it warm, and then we're going to add our potatoes, and we'll let them cook. So I just added 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, and we're gonna cook our potatoes in a medium-high heat until they're completely soft. And then while we're cooking the potatoes, we can start prepping our mixture of the ground meat. While our potatoes are getting cooked, we're going to get our lemons that have been in this mason jar. And we're gonna take about one wedge and we're going to just lightly chop it. And so again, you can prep these lemons and just blanch them in boiling water with about a cup of apple cider vinegar, and then you can just leave it in the fridge for about a week and you can use it when you're cooking. So again, I use it for this recipe because it just, when you're going to be making the sauce, it just adds a really nice acidity to the tomatoes. And so the base of our sauce, a lot of times people use chicken stock or vegetable stock, and so I'm going to show you guys how you can use ingredients to make your base, and it's going to give you a really nice and rich flavor to the sauce you're going to be making. All right, so these are finely chopped, and so I can hear my potatoes already cooking, so I'm going to go and toss them around so they don't get burned. All right, so our potatoes are cooking in oil, and you know, it's interesting, whenever I started experimenting with this recipe, whenever we're gonna be cooking the grape tomatoes, and again, it's all about making your base. And so what is gonna help thicken your sauce is the potatoes. And so you gotta fry them, and then once they're really soft and brown, we're gonna take them out. And so in the same oil, we're actually gonna add our celery, our onions. And so when I was talking about how you can make your base, and you can actually do this for soups, I do it for soups as well. Instead of getting vegetable stock, which tends to be really high with sodium, what you can do is get celery and onions. And so in a lower heat, you reduce them and you cook them, and all of those, the moisture that is gonna come out of there is gonna become really, really flavorful. And then you can add your garlic and your water and your salt and your spices, and that becomes your base. And so that's what we're gonna do today. And so the potatoes actually give it a really nice thickness to the sauce and also a flavor. And so that's what we're doing today. Okay, as you guys can see, our potatoes are now ready. They're nice and soft, and we can get these out of here so we can move to our next task, which is gonna be to add the celery, the onions, and let those cook for about 5 minutes. And then lastly, we'll add the garlic. Hey guys, so we got our potatoes out of the pot, and so in the oil that is left in the pot, we're going to add I have about half a cup of the onion. So half of onion gave me about 2 half cups of onions. So half of it we're going to, one half we're going to use it for what we're going to add right now in here. And then I have about another half a cup of the diced celery, and we're going to add it here. And then we're also going to add the wedge of lemon that I diced. We'll add it in there. And we're going to let this cook in a medium-high heat for about 5 minutes until we get all of those flavors out of the celery, the onion, and the lemon. And then after 5 minutes, we'll add the garlic, and we'll let that cook for about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. And then we'll have a nice sip of red wine while we're cooking. So our onions and celery are now translucent, and so we're ready now to add our garlic. Now it's important to make sure that you don't burn the onions and the garlic, because then your sauce is gonna taste bitter. So we want to make sure we caramelize it, but we don't burn it. Now we added 1 tablespoon of garlic. That should be enough for this recipe. And we're just going to let it cook for about 1.5 minutes, and we're going to add our water and the tomatoes. Okay, so it's been about 1.5 minutes, and the garlic is ready. And now we're going to add our 3 pounds of grape tomatoes. One ran away. And we'll add our water. And so basically, this is 1 cup of water, and we'll start with that. And we're going to let the tomatoes get cooked and get soft for about, this is probably gonna take about 10 minutes on a lower heat. And then we're going to blend them so we can get a really nice consistency with the potatoes that we cooked. So while we're doing this, we're going to prepare the batch of the meatballs. Okay, now I'm adding 1 shallot into the batch of tomatoes. We're gonna cover it and let those reduce. We're gonna stir this and we'll let those cook until they get soft. We'll cover them on a medium heat and we'll move on to making the batch of our meatballs. Hey guys, okay, so while our tomatoes are getting cooked, we're going to work with our 2 mixtures. So the first one we're gonna be doing is gonna be the cheese and herb mixture that is going to be the filling for our mushrooms. And then once we have that completed, we'll move on to the mixture where we're gonna be adding all of the components that go into the meatballs. So we have the ground beef over here on this side, but we'll get started with the filling first. All right guys, so we're going to be making now our cheese filling mixture. And so we're gonna get started with the Gruyere cheese. And so remember, what you prepare, we're gonna use half of it for the filling and half of it is gonna go with the meatballs. And so we'll just take half of what you prepare, that Gruyere cheese, and we'll add it into a bowl. So that's good. And then same thing with the feta, we're gonna get half of it and we'll add it to the bowl, into here. And we're gonna get half of what you have left of the onions and we'll add them in here as well. And we'll get our herbs and we'll use about half of it as well. And so this basically is going to make our filling. So we're just gonna mix it very well. All right, so we got all of our components into this bowl. And so we're making our mixture. And so we just want to make sure that all of the components and the cheeses are very incorporated. I know that the feta tends to be, these are crumbs of feta. So we just want to get it really nice and combined. So you have your onions, we got the mixture of the herbs, and we got the cheeses, this is going to be the stuffing that goes into the mushrooms. Okay guys, so we have filled our mushrooms with the mixture and we had just enough. So this was just 1 package of mushrooms that I got, and so that batch was perfectly enough for this batch of mushrooms that we stuffed. And so these are completed. So now we're going to do the mixture of our ground beef. All right guys, so we're back. So now we're going to move on and make a mixture of the meatballs with the ground beef. And so what's left of the components we have, we're gonna start with the diced onions that we have left. We're gonna add them in here. We have the feta cheese, what's left, we'll throw it in there. And the Gruyere cheese, we'll add in here. And what's left of the garlic, minced garlic, we'll add it. And what's left of the herbs mixture, we'll add it in here as well. And I have 1 teaspoon of cumin and 1 teaspoon of paprika and 1 tablespoon of oregano. And so we're just gonna throw everything in here. So all of these flavors are gonna be really earthy, they go very well with this mixture. It's gonna add a really good flavor to the meat. And I have 1 cup of the gluten-free panko. And so we're going to, this is 1 cup, a full cup, so we're just gonna throw it in there. And we're just gonna mix it all in. And lastly, we have our eggs. So we have 3 eggs, and we're just gonna add them in here. It's 1, 2, and 3. Here we go. Now, is this a complicated recipe? Yes, it's definitely a complicated recipe because he has a lot of components and the time that it takes to prep and cook all the ingredients. but I would say that it's definitely worth it if you want to elevate your kitchen experience and add a recipe that just you want to impress people. If you have family members or gatherings and you want to bring, you know, something that is going to impress everybody, I think this is a recipe you definitely want to perfect, because it's really good, but it's definitely is going to impress people because it's not something that you can just come up with and like you can do it in 3 minutes. It takes some time, but you'll feel very proud of yourself. Okay, so we're mixing all of the ingredients, and as always, make sure you wash your hands very well. And you want to make sure that, you know, you get your hands in there to incorporate all of the components very well. All right, so we're going to add 1 teaspoon of sea salt. So again, this is to taste. I don't like things too salty, and so that should be enough. And so one thing you're gonna see is that the panko and the cheese kind of helps take on some of that moisture, so you can work the mixture of the ground beef and be able to form your meatballs. Okay, so our grape tomatoes are really nice and soft, and so we're using an old-fashioned masher to break them down, and we're going to add our cooked potatoes so we can help thicken the sauce. And you can use a stick blender if you have one. We do have one, but you know, I like to be old school, and so I really enjoy the process. So we're gonna use this masher, and if you can tell, the potatoes are going to help thicken the sauce. And then we'll just let it cook for a little bit and let it simmer, and then our sauce is gonna be ready. Okay, so now that we've used the masher and we break them down, now we're gonna use the stick blender and just use it to help us make the sauce. Okay, so now that we've used the stick blender and we have our sauce, we're just gonna throw in there 3 leaves of basil, and we're gonna use 1 teaspoon of salt, sea salt, in here. And our sauce is ready. So now we're ready to go make our meatballs. We're actually gonna form them. Hey guys, so it's always important to taste, and so I just did a little taste and it tastes amazing. If you want to know how to make a creamy tomato basil, you just add to this recipe in here for this sauce some heavy whipping cream, and you have a really delicious tomato basil. But now we're gonna add a little bit of pepper, crushed pepper, to taste, and just a little bit of salt. We just want to perfect the flavor, so I'm using just a pinch of salt. And then we'll mix it in, we'll give it another taste just to make sure that we have the flavor that we're looking for. That's nice and mixed. Let's try it. Oh my god, that's amazing. That's really good. You can literally eat this by itself as a soup. You just get some garlic bread and you have a really nice yummy sauce. All right, we'll take this aside, and now we're going to make our meatballs. So now we're going to move on and start prepping our meatballs. And so what you want to do is just grab some ground beef and then just play with it and form kind of like a bed on the palm of your hand. And so it all depends on the sizes of your mushrooms. So I have different sizes, and so here you just put it in between, and then you just start wrapping around the ground beef mixture that you have until you form a perfect meatball. And so again, all that cheese and the panko kind of helps create a good mixture of the ground beef, and it helps you form the meatballs. So here you have a perfect meatball. And so we'll just transfer that here and move on to the next one. So we'll grab some more mixture. And if you like cooking, if you like spending time in the kitchen, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I get tired of fast food, and I do like fine dining. So that's why a lot of times I kind of like spending time at the kitchen with my boo and just exploring new recipes, or cooking, just to try some of the things that we want to perfect, and then pass it on to you guys, so because it's fun. Hey guys, so we have completed all of our meatballs, and so now we're going to heat up some oil on a wide pan, and we're going to start transferring the meatballs once the oil has been heated up, so we can fry them. And so we'll complete that process. Once they're completely fried and cooked, we're going to transfer them into the sauce that we have created. All right guys, so on a low to medium heat, we need to cook this in oil until they're completely brown. And then it's been about 20 minutes, and we just kept turning them until we brown them and they're completely cooked. Now you also want to like cut one of the large pieces just to make sure that they're fully cooked, or use also a thermometer, and once it reaches at least 165 degrees inside, then that's considered safe. But you definitely want to get a really nice color and brown them. And so once they're completely brown, what we're gonna do is take them out of the oil and transfer them outside, so we can get some of that oil out of it before we put them in the sauce, and let them marinate and cook in the sauce for about another 10 minutes, and we'll be completely done. Okay, so now that we have our meatballs completely browned, we're going to transfer this into our sauce, so we can let them marinate and cook with the sauce for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then we'll add our cannellini beans and pine nuts last, and we'll be done. All right, so we have our meatballs already inside the sauce, and now we're going to add our cannellini beans, and we're just gonna let them braise with the sauce for about 10 to 15 minutes. And this is the last of it. And we're almost done with our Tuscan cannellini beans. And then we'll just, at the end, we'll sprinkle it with some of the roasted pine nuts that we have, and it's gonna be ready to serve.
Okay, so we're back and the meal is finally complete, and it's taste testing time. You ready?
Yes. So we decorated the plate with the pine nuts, and then as you're serving it, you can get creative and just put some basil leaves around it, or parsley, to kind of highlight the meal. But you can get really creative and just make it look really, very pretty.
And you could also make pasta with this, right?
Yeah, this goes very well with, like there's gluten-free pasta, but if you're not gluten-free, some noodles will be really good with it. But today, since we have cannellini beans with this dish, there's already carbs in it. But I think this by itself is really good.
That's very tasty, very good.
So yeah, the mushroom inside the meatball is kind of like a twist to a meatball. But getting the cheese inside, stuffing it in the mushroom, and then browning the meat in oil, it's really, really great.
Take a picture of that.
That looks very pretty.
Yeah,
look at that. Oh wow. And it smells wonderful.
Let's take a picture of the, take a picture and we'll add it to the video, so you can see when you slice into the, listen to our dogs. When you slice into the meatball, you can see the mushroom in there. It looks really pretty.
It is very pretty. And again, like when you're prepping your dish, I actually had about 3 mushrooms that got stuffed because I didn't have enough of the meat. Excuse Simon. But you can actually fry those as well, and they taste really good with the cheese. And you can have those as appetizer. You can serve them aside if you have extra, or if you don't want to make the meatballs and you just want to do the mushrooms with the mixture of the cheese for stuffing, you can use those, and they're actually really, really good.
Very good, Boo.
What do you think?
I love it. It's very good. Mmm.
That is good. Yum, yum.
Mm.
Well, I hope you guys give it a try, and let us know what you guys think if you guys do try it. But it was really good.
Thank you so much for joining us on Happy Healthy Living with Yvonne Douglas today. Remember, if you want that homey vibe, you need to subscribe, and please give this video a like.
Cheers.
Until next time, our friends. Happy Healthy Living. Bye-bye. Cheers.